game's over.
Welcome into Triple Zeros, the anti-high tech sports show. I am your host, Josh Buckhall. To be sure to follow me on X at JoshyBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports. The website is clockersports.com. And, of course, the email address is contact@clockersports.com. And you can follow the show on X and on Facebook at 30spod. That's the number 30spod. You can follow the site on Instagram, Facebook, and X at clockersports.com. That's the website. It's not the whole thing. Anyway, get right to it, man. We have another great episode lined up for you today. Talk about some NBA and NFL stuff. Listen. Real quick, I have tried to do the make time for the second show to split the NBA and NFL up. It has not worked out. The holidays have not helped. Hustle and bustle, shopping, and all that kind of stuff is kind of taking up some of that free time that I thought I was going to have. It wasn't real. It didn't exist. So we're still aiming to get 2 shows in, but I will do my best to try to get as much of the pertinent stuff as I can every time that we do convene, because I do enjoy these little therapy sessions. This is therapeutic for me. You know, when I do have guests on, I'm sure they can get some of their catharsis in there. But this is therapeutic for me. I get to let loose, get some venting going on sometimes. Most of the time, I'm just telling you stuff that I've heard and what I'm, just reacting to that. But, get to get some stuff off your chest on a platform, and it helps. It definitely helps. The copium, I guess you could call it, with some of the stuff that I have said. But we do aim to be the anti-high take show, so we try to keep it rolling. That being said, we're going to get right into, as we do typically around this time, some Bears stuff. They got back to practice today. You saw I guess a mixed bag is what I termed it during my practice report. Again, follow me on X at JoshGBuck and on Clocker Sports. That's where the report came out. It was actually on Clocker Sports. Mixed bag. You had Cole Kmet did not practice today. Lucas Patrick did not practice today as he was dealing with the knee injury. Kmet was, and I think Lucas Patrick was as well. So Cole Kmet was dealing with a knee. Lucas Patrick, I believe, as well. I'm going to pull that up so I can make sure that I have the most accurate information available. I don't want to be out here halfway stepping. That tends to happen. I don't know if you ever watched my reports, but you can see sometimes when I lose my train of thought. It happens often. It happens quite often. But today's report, you had DNPs were Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney, who self-reported concussion symptoms. So good for him for self-reporting. Hopefully it doesn't linger too long. We've seen that they can take you guys out for 2 to 3 weeks at a time if they're not, if they're severe enough. And then you had, like I said, Lucas Patrick with that knee. So 2 knees and a concussion for the DNP guys. And then you had returning to practice, Deontay Foreman. He had personal reasons that he was dealing with last week, kept him out of the game. Spoke with him in the locker room, said he's doing good. He's just back, had some stuff he had to take care of, and now it's taken care of. Tevin Jenkins is still in concussion protocol, head coach Matt Eberflus said, but Jenkins did relay to Alex Shapiro of NBC Sports Chicago that he should have a chance to be cleared by tonight. They had some more meetings to do before they all got out of there, so we'll see what happens. And then you had as well linebacker Noah Sewell returned to practice in full with that knee injury that cropped back up on him last week. And then Equity St. Brown returned to practice with a full go with that pectoral injury. And it's interesting, the St. Brown one, because he has been a missing piece of this offense. And I know he doesn't catch a lot of passes, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about for his size, the ability to go up there and get the jump ball, but also his blocking ability. We saw, and I actually shared on Clocker Sports on X, video of Tyler Scott throwing a block on Justin Fields' scramble, I think in the fourth quarter of the game against the Cleveland Browns. And you saw Scott throw his all right into the DB. The DB moved. It moved. It was a good block, real solid hit. But it wasn't a sustained block, a what you would call a dominant block, right? A dominant blocking rep. It was a good block. You miss that when you have the 6'5". You don't miss that when you have the 6'5" Equity St. Brown out there. And likewise, the Bears had wide receiver Collin Johnson called up for the game to try to get a bigger body out there. And Johnson is a name that you may have remembered from the preseason or in the earlier season when they brought him in off of the Giants practice squad, I believe it was. He has not played since, I believe, 2021. He had not played, rather, because he did get into the game. And I had to talk to him about that because I spoke with him when he first arrived, because when you see him, you notice him, especially in the Bears wide receiver group, 6'6" guy, right? Remember in the preseason, it was Chase Claypool and Equity St. Brown, but Claypool kind of did not pan out. So, since 2021 for Collin Johnson, had 11 catches, 105 yards in that season. He had 18 for 272 and 2 touchdowns in 2020, and seemed like he was about to be on the verge of a breakout in 2021 before he tore his Achilles. So had to talk to him about that and just got to maybe, gauge how he felt getting in there. He did not catch a pass, right? I'm sorry, against the Cardinals. I said the Browns. Against the Arizona Cardinals. The Browns was the week before. Arizona Cardinals in the win over Arizona. Collin Johnson got some run and was out there blocking. Like I said, did not catch a pass, but was out there. He was blocking. And you could notice him because he is 6'6". And so I just had to ask him, how it felt, what was it like, and what is he trying to show and hope that he showed in his performance.
Man, honestly, it was a huge lesson for me. Hard work does pay off. It's been a long time coming for me in my journey, coming off my Achilles tear, 2022. But I just kept working, kept chipping away, and got my opportunity today. And I'm glad to contribute any way I can. So.
We've seen some of the other playmakers have, or maybe, I don't want to say an issue, but it takes some time to pick up the playbook. What has been your thoughts of the playbook here compared to maybe other stops you've had?
Playbook is awesome here. Football's universal, so concepts are the same, a lot of plays are the same everywhere you go, but picking up on the terminology is a hard part, so just memorizing the terminology, So other than that, just putting in the time on my own time to just pick up the playbook. I feel like I've done a pretty good job at that.
What do you think you showed him out there today? I saw you get out there for a couple of one blocks, man.
Yeah, definitely blocking. Being physical, big body receiver, not scared to go in there and hit somebody for sure. Just doing my job. That was my job today, and I feel like I did that at a high level. So watch the tape, clean up anything I can be better at. Again, just super happy to be out there.
We talked when you first arrived about you wanting to prove that you are that kind of receiver. What more do you think you got to show to kind of maybe earn some more reps out there?
Man, I would say really just keep doing what I'm doing, showing up every day in practice, taking advantage of my reps there, and earn these reps in the game more and more. And I feel like that'll take care of itself when I get my opportunities in the game to make plays. Just make plays, but you practice how you play. So if I continue to practice well, I feel like I'll continue to play well. But that's it.
And there you have Bears wide receiver Collin Johnson. Just talk about the journey, man, and I love that unbridled honesty. That's kind of why I share clips of maybe lesser-known players, quote-unquote, right, because those guys are telling you how much this kind of means to them in a season that is undoubtedly not, I guess they still have a chance. They're still alive in the playoff hunt. But for the most part, it's lost for these Bears as a team, right? But there's still individual battles out there, individual things that are out there being earned and worked hard for. And to see a guy who has gone through so much, like I said, he was looking like he was on the verge of having a significant role in 2022 when he tore that Achilles and had to sit out the entire season. So to see the smile on his face from being able to get out there and contribute again, and knowing what he brings to the table, I'm not sure if he'll be able to get another crack at it with St. Brown returning to practice. But it was good to see him on the field and then B, his reaction to it afterwards. So I was really, really pleased about that. Like I said, they still have a ton of injuries going on, and we'll see what they can do cleaning up for the rest of the week. Elsewhere, talking about some of the other teams that I cover, we had the Kansas City Chiefs just wrote a piece for Last Word on Pro Football, Last Word on Sports. I always want to go back to the old one. That was back in my day. When I signed up with Last Word initially, that was the name of the company. It was Last Word on Pro Football, and they had Last Word on Basketball. They typically just go under the umbrella Last Word on Sports now. So for Last Word on Sports, I wrote about Chris Sims, former NFL quarterback Chris Sims, putting the Chiefs offense on red alert, basically because of their offensive struggles and how they lack the playmakers to kind of make a difference in the passing game. And not only that, but Sims doubled down and said they're also lacking the creativity in the passing game. And I thought that it married well with Travis Kelce's comments about at some point in time, everybody's not taking the accountability. He included himself in that, but it's hard to not think that it's not a dig. I wouldn't call it a dig. But it's calling for accountability from the quarterback and the head coach as well, right? Even if you're not saying it to them, even if he didn't mean it that way, it has to go to them because, to Sims' point, they are struggling offensively. They are struggling to figure out the ways to manufacture an offense with a skill set, a skill position group at wide receiver especially, that is underperformed, right? Your running back room is beat up right now. Your top running back, Isaiah Pacheco, did not practice on Wednesday. So they have a lot going on. And I think I talked about this last week or last episode, maybe a couple episodes ago. Maybe it's even more than that, more frequently than that. But this Chiefs team, and I wrote about that in the article there, this is the worst offensive yards and points in the Mahomes era. And so while Sims was pointing to them to lean on their defense, I am one who maybe wants to kind of see them figure out. He said, don't chase that magic. I think they might want to try to figure out something they can do to kind of generate that, whether it's manufactured magic or it's some way to bake in more freestyling for Mahomes, boots and nakeds and all that kind of stuff, because what they're doing isn't working, and they're wasting a defense that's the highest. Oh boy, the defensive rankings, and I might be off by a year or so, one of the yards and points, Yards was like 2014 or 15, and then the points was like 1995. Like, they're doing things that they have not done under Andy Reid, let alone with Patrick Mahomes and that defensive side of the ball, and it's just being wasted. Now, imagine how great that defense could be if they weren't always on the field as much as they have been, if they weren't given short fields like they have been. That's a historically good defense in that situation. It hasn't been that case, and so it's easy to say that they should just, lean into their defensive identity and become, but they're not built that way. They're not built to grind the ball out, especially with Pacheco out. They're not built to move the chains on long matriculating drives because they can't count on their playmakers to do that. And they already have a hard enough time getting defenses to respect them deep, right? Because who's consistently a deep threat on that team? Your deep threat guys, your MVS is Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Your Sky Moore. Sky Moore's on the injured reserve, right? Kadarius Toney didn't practice today. Rashee Rice is good, but I would say he's more of an intermediate to short range receiver than he would be a deep threat, even though he's a big body guy. There's just a lot to work out and not a lot of answers coming in for this team. Similar to what the Bears have coming in, right? They had to make some changes and adjustments. It's going to be within. I think that the down the stretch, at least, and into the playoffs, because if not, the last time that they had this kind of oh boy, I want to say last time ring. I got to reread the article, but I know that the last one they had this kind of a finish. They ended up going 12-4 or something along those lines, but they were out in the divisional round. That's my point. That's where I was getting to, is that they were out, one and done in the playoffs. Totally can see that happening, especially with some of the ways some of these matchups could shake out once things go. If they play the Bills, right? If they play a team that's already got the high-powered offense, I don't care how good your defense is because they're just going to keep on attacking you, and you don't have the firepower to keep up with that. That's a problem. Defense wins championships, but your offense has to be able to put pressure on the opposing offense to have to go out there and score. And if you don't do that, then you're just sitting on it, and it can come down to a simple mistake of Patrick Mahomes' interception, a fumble, right? A deflection that turns into an interception. Those things happen on a regular basis, and I just feel like this Chiefs team is not built to overcome them. I don't know if they've ever really had the structure to work around those things. I think they've done a lot of relying on the talent that they've had, and they've watched as that talent has gotten lesser. Older, let some go, whatever the case may be. I've got a lot of flack on social media about saying that the Chiefs made a mistake in trading Tyreek Hill. And you can point to the Super Bowl all you want to and the moves they made. I would simply tell you that they did a good job rebounding from that mistake. And why I say it was a mistake then and now is because I could see this coming. They were struggling so bad at that point in the season that it just was clear and obvious that they were missing something, a spark. And I think they underestimated they didn't think he could hold up this long, and I didn't either. So I want to also say that I probably wasn't as against the move in real time as I was after the fact. But I wasn't a fan of it. Let me put it that way. I was probably on the fence more like, oh man, I could see it, but didn't make sense because he was the most dynamic playmaker in space. Travis Kelce's like 34. He's younger than me, but he's still he's football old, and that there is a problem. Right, Mahomes is in his prime, and he should be dominating the league. But now there's questions about his supremacy in the quarterback hierarchy. I think that's asinine, and it probably is overblown just because of in reaction to what the loss of the Raiders in Week 16 there. But that's where we are, and that would have been unthinkable maybe coming into the year, let alone last season when they were on their way to the Super Bowl. So. Coming back to the NFC, you have the Minnesota Vikings. Still no word on which quarterback will start. Nick Mullins struggled again. Nick Mullins is a QB2 at best in this league. He's shown that he has a propensity to turn the ball over, and I commented on this. It's not necessarily that he's turning the ball over off like strip sacks or like tip balls. It's that every time he's getting sacked, he seems to feel the compulsion, because I would say it's a need, but we know he does not need to do it, but a compulsion to kind of squirt the ball, throw the ball out real fast. What are you doing? You're going down. There's no one around. It's anything can happen at that point, but it's like a reflex for him to kind of, just chuck the ball out of there as he's being taken down to the ground. And I know that we see quarterbacks kind of throw out of sacks and get it, as long as you get within the range of the receiver, they'll probably let the play slide. These aren't that. These are plays in desperation, heaves, essentially. They just don't go far because he's already, horizontal. I don't know if Jaron Hall, a fifth-round rookie out of BYU, is the answer, especially for a team in a playoff chase. And I think that's honestly, the Vikings are their own worst enemy in that regard. There's expectations. Even if all these guys have been hurt, you are a playoff team as it stands, or on the verge of being a playoff team as it stands. They lost their wild card spot with that, with their loss to the Detroit Lions in Week 16. They also lost a couple of players, two players, No, three. Man, was it more than that? I think it was 4 players because you had T.J. Hockenson, who's out for the season, torn ACL and PCL. DJ Waddle tore his quad, so he's out for the season as well. Rookie wide receiver Jordan Addison left with an ankle injury, and then you had rookie cornerback Mekhi Blackman also suffered an injury. Now, the last 2 guys, head coach Kevin O'Connell, I will get that easily, said that both guys were questionable, so that's good news. He also said that he hopes to see Brian O'Neill back this week, but losing Wanham and Hockenson is 2 severe blows to a Vikings defense that has kept them really alive this season for the most part. You know, they give up big plays, but they are very aggressive, very opportunistic. And then an offense that can't afford to lose any more playmakers, right? They got Justin Jefferson back after, he had to leave briefly, or exit early rather, in week 15. He came back in week 16. He had just come back in week 15 after a 7-week absence from a hamstring injury, got a chest injury, right? He's back in full effect, and then Jordan Addison goes down. You'd already lost Kirk Cousins earlier in the year, right? You've cycled through 4. You're on your 4th quarterback now. You go to Hall, and then what? Like I think maybe that's why they don't do it, because maybe you don't want to kill his confidence. Because if he comes in there at the end of the season when the deck's stacked against him, and he doesn't look good, what does that do for his confidence going into the next season? So, I don't know. There's a lot to figure out there. I got an article coming out for Heavy on Vikings about what that decision is going to look like. There has not, again, been any official word made yet, but there does seem to be some kind of an inkling of what may happen. So, I'll be having that up before the end of the night. So, go ahead and check out for that. Again, Heavy on Vikings. And I just, really am excited about just seeing what happens, how the rest of these last couple of weeks play out, man. There's so much parity in the NFL in both conferences, really, because I don't think that there's a juggernaut. I thought, well, actually, I told you last week that the 49ers weren't a juggernaut because they had the fatal flaw. Just wasn't what I thought it was. It's still Brock Purdy, and it probably still has injuries too. But I think I underestimated how much the level of competition matters. We saw when the 49ers had to play a team that was on paper as good as them, right? Record-wise good as them, they folded. I think we've seen that a lot from a lot of teams in this season. I would love to see the Ravens go ahead and do it because I just like what they've built over the past few seasons, past few years with Lamar Jackson. So if they were the ones who make it, that's fine. San Francisco, I think, might still run rush out over the NFC. I'm not sure who can catch them and beat them. Maybe the Rams, if they can be healthy enough when it comes time for that battle to happen. But it's a lot of parity. It's a lot of ups and downs, a lot of mixed match, a lot of uncertainty, rather. How about that? There's no clear-cut favorite anywhere. I don't see one. I haven't seen one all season long, and I think that's been one of the more stable tenets of my conversation on here is just that nothing's standing out. I thought the Niners were. They'd won me over only to get themselves smacked around, and so I have to go ahead and back up off that. Elsewhere, what other conversations we have? The MVP conversation is actually very apropos to that one. You have 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy and Lamar Jackson leading the public opinion ballots, right? The conversation that revolves around those 2 guys. And if it's not them, then it's skill position players and Tyreek Hill and Christian McCaffrey. I just read an argument that Lamar's stats aren't good enough for MVP. And this is where I have an issue. If we're basing MVP solely off stats, then it shouldn't even be a debate. I think it should be a pretty fairly clean decision. But if you want to, like this person, argue that McCaffrey or that Tyreek Hill should win the award, you're probably going to have to take some stats out of it. You're probably going to have to leave some stats out because they are going to be keys, and we know why because of what their production is. But there's always an argument for the quarterback to be made, right? You can always make that argument for everyone because he touches the ball every time. Well, McCaffrey wouldn't have got the ball if he didn't get him, if he didn't stick it to him in the chest, right? Tyreek Hill wouldn't have got the ball if Tua wasn't throwing it to him. So you can make that argument. But I don't agree that Lamar's stats aren't great enough for that, right? I don't think that you can solely base it's valuable. It's not just most productive player. It's most valuable player. And so his value is clear. Lamar would be my MVP right now, just to put that out there. But I, again, would have absolutely no qualms about naming Tyreek Hill or Christian McCaffrey as the MVP this season. I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be a really good thing to see because we don't see it enough, to be honest with you. It has become kind of a default quarterback award. And then the offensive player award, Justin Jefferson's the rating player there. Rating winner there. Offensive player award typically goes to the other positions, to kind of honor them, which is whatever. But I think that if you're going to do it, that's fine. But I guess I don't know. I don't feel like we should. I'm not big on the down talking one person to lift up another. So I would just put up what their numbers are and say that you can go off of that. Again, it's the most valuable, not most productive. And if we're talking about most valuable again, you can't deny the value of a quarterback. You can say the value of a running back, and McCaffrey is more valuable to the 49ers probably than any other running back to any other system, maybe save for Derrick Henry out in Tennessee. But I'm not going to be mad either way. I get it. I understand it. I know it's a nuanced thing, and it's always going to quarterback. Yeah, well, can you really be upset about it, or are you just upset that it's always a quarterback? You know what I mean? Like, are you upset by the logic behind it, or just that it wasn't something else because we like change? People like change. They don't like changes to themselves or for themselves, but they like to see things change. It's kind of funny that way. Elsewhere around the league, the Broncos have benched quarterback Russell Wilson. He will sit out the final 2 games. They will go with quarterback Jarrett Stidham. Here's the thing about that. Russ has not been playing poorly. This is a situation that is said to be based on preserving financial flexibility. They want to bring Russell Wilson into camp next season to compete for the job, according to Jordan Schultz of Bleacher Report. So we'll see how that plays out. But I can't help but reflect back on the time before when Bears fans, including myself at one point, were saying, go get Russ. A lot of that was because of what the team was around him at that point, or would have been around him, rather, at that point. But I can also say, despite the fact that it's not really on him, this is not about his play necessarily. He hasn't been great, but it hasn't been terrible either. This is more about just the whole debacle, right? The whole situation they had to go through to even get to this point, finding out that there was some kind of, I don't want to say issue with Russ, but like the way he was running things as a quarterback of a team just weren't right. The separate office and all that, that's asinine. I know you've won and you've been that guy, climbed the mountaintop, but part of being that guy is realizing that you have to stay humble. And it sounded like, because I'm not in the building, it sounded like Russ had kind of drank his own Kool-Aid and was really living that Mr. Unlimited life. Trying to. Broncos country ride, all the cheesiness, right? All that stuff. Watch the games with Sean Payton. They don't even like each other half the time. And it kind of brings us to a larger quarterback discussion here. Basically, I guess it's another way for me to talk about the Bears. But we know the quarterback decision that they have to make with Justin Fields. They might have that looking likely that they're going to have the number 1 overall pick, a chance at Caleb Williams. Williams caught a lot of. Side note: can we stop worrying? Maybe not stop worrying, because I write about it a lot of times. But like, don't take every of a player of a tweet as a sign of what they're feeling. I saw somebody point out they keep receipts a lot of times. I personally use bookmarks, or likes as bookmarks rather, on X and Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I don't really care. So I totally understand that not being a thing. That being said, he did like a tweet saying that they shouldn't draft him, they should draft Marvin Harrison Jr. And then he also liked another one the day later, or a day or two later, saying that the fans' video of him saying that they had waited their whole life for a prospect like him. So it goes both ways, just to be clear. But if you're the Bears, right? I'm not sure that you have evidence to show you that changing to what everybody wants you to do, which is go offensive guy, get that quarterback that get your court, whatever. Well, you could say that Russell wasn't their guy, but we've seen quarterbacks around the league be replaced. Kyler Murray, I talked about this last episode. Kyler Murray replaced Josh Rosen. Now, Rosen was, I think, the 10th. He was picked before Fields, I believe. But he only got 1 season. Fields has gotten 3 already, so I guess you could say, well, they've given him far more time already before they moved on. But it's still replacing a first-round pick with another first-round pick and one at number 1 overall. And Murray is probably an extreme example, given his stature, right? The injuries, the character things that were brought up about him coming out of college. But it has not worked, and so they're going to do what they're going to do, and I'm sure hopefully fans will root for whoever is the quarterback, but I will just feel like, and I talked about this today with somebody in the locker room, it just feels like the conversation there kind of gets skewed when you see around the league grabbing that offensive head coach. Look at Arthur Smith in Atlanta. You should hear the conversations about Desmond Ridder. If you think Bears fans don't like Justin Fields, you should hear how they talk about Desmond Ridder, how they talk about Arthur Smith, and things like that. Those kind of conversations kind of make me feel like the Bears are closer than we might want to give them credit for, and in terms of even with who they have in the building. And that could be head coach, quarterback, maybe even offensive coordinator. I don't know, whatever. But my point is just that there are far worse situations. We've asked Montez Sweat about his time in Washington, and he's kind of talked about how it kind of fell off the rails, and then now I don't even want to talk about Washington. Like it seemed like things went awry, and it has not happened for the Bears, and the faith that the players or the chemistry in the locker room, right? The camaraderie in the locker room. I talked to Fields about that today. He said that it's important to build those relationships. There was an emphasis on that, and the bonds that they've built have helped them get through the rough season. I just don't know how you pivot away from that for a guy who maybe the reports about him are exaggerating things, and what we see is only the smallest of fractions, and he's really great behind the closed doors, like Kevin Durant tried to hint about. We'll talk about that in a second. But maybe he's not what it seems like sometimes with the ditching of the media responsibilities and I'm not a guy who cares about him going to cry after losing a game. That was probably a big, important moment for him, or maybe there's something to him. I never even got the full story because that's how little I cared about that. But I do care about being a front runner. I do care about the stuff that they're saying that Fields can't do. I still see a lot of that in Caleb Williams. There's stuff that they say that he does that's just preternatural that I see from Fields too. So I'm not sold that transition is going to be as good, especially when, like I said, I can point to any number of examples where you revamp your quarterback position, right? You bring in all these things where it doesn't necessarily work, and then I can point to you to signs of where stuff was going better than what you might think is going here, and it went crashed, burned, and this has not happened here. So I don't know. I don't know where they're going to go. I have no inkling. I thought I did. The more I hear people talk, I would probably say you might get a new head coach and quarterback next year. There's definitely, that's the opportunity is probably so great that would have to be the favorite right now, that they reset both. But this is the Bears. There's no telling what's going to happen, man. there's no telling what they're going to do. I look at situations like what they have in Atlanta and hearing people talk about those kind of things, and it just kind of throws me off. So, like I said, if you want to give MVP, and I'm jumping topics here, so I appreciate you guys for sticking around with me. I know my mind works in mysterious ways sometimes, but we come back to the main point. I'm all for the MVP thing. I really am. I really do think that we kind of tab it for quarterbacks and doesn't have to be that way. Russell Wilson's getting benched. I mean, that's financial, like I said. Let's see what else we got going on, because I don't want to keep dragging on that one. Like I said, I jumped around too many times. I kind of lost my own train. But and like I said, back to it all. Bears might not be changing anything. Let's kind of recap and get ourselves back on track here. Bears might not be moving on from as many people as people maybe want them to or thought they would have. MVP, please, if you're going to give it to them, go ahead and give it to them. Let's just not have to down the quarterbacks because of that. Go ahead and give it to one of those skill position guys, because I think they've earned it more than anything. And then Russell Wilson getting benched, just as a Bears fan, that probably feels a little bit better knowing that you didn't have to go through all of that drama, that turmoil to get to this point, because the Broncos are doing this now and still have so much more to kind of figure out before they have everything all settled down. So just keep an eye on that, man. It's really kind of an interesting, fascinating, really kind of close to the season, I think, because there's just so many coaches. I think I've heard like up to 11 coaches could be gone. We'll see how that all goes. There's going to be some openings. Brandon Staley out there in Los Angeles probably is going to, or he did get fired. You're going to see a run on that job probably, but not necessarily a lot of other players. I don't know. I'm always fascinated by the coaching hires, because everybody that gets hired is their guy. It's always there. This is our guy. This is the guy that we want. This is the guy that we targeted. This is the guy that we knew. But that's not true, because they take other interviews, right? the candidates take other interviews. The teams interview other people. So clearly somebody wasn't your first choice, but that's okay. It doesn't mean they won't work out. I just think it's kind of funny how that is always what it was. It was always I guess. It's always interesting. It's the domino effect. How about that? To see who goes first. The top guy goes first, and then where everybody else falls into place after that. And I think kind of get an idea of both sides. What both sides were kind of targeting, the organization and the individual candidates in that fashion. So that's going to do it for this episode, or not this episode, for this segment of Triple C Rose, the NFL. And I don't think I even played the sounder for you. I'm getting rusty, man. We got to clean that up. That was bad. How did I not drop that at the beginning? I think I had my finger on the button and everything, and I didn't do it. Oh, my gosh. I'm kind of disappointed in myself for that. Anyway, let's go on over to the NBA. And I talked about Kevin Durant and the storyline there. The main thing, and we'll go into some of the stuff that I covered, but more, we'll stick with this right now. You got Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns are struggling. They have like 3 wins in the last 9 outings, something along those lines. There's a report from Adrian Wojnarowski that ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. This is the problem when you talk fast, okay? I just want to point that out. If I didn't talk so fast, I wouldn't stumble as much. However, I'm a habitual speed talker. I've been told that many times from people who listen to the podcast and in person. Hey, slow down. I try, but my mind is racing. This is back to that thing about losing my train of thought. If I don't get it out now, it's probably going to leave. So I try to rush. Now, as I was saying, ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reported that there is a sense of growing frustration within the organization from Kevin Durant. Well, Durant came out and refuted that. However, I still felt like it was appropriate to put together a piece for Heavy on Lakers about a proposal that the Lakers could send over to the Suns to kind of alleviate some of that frustration that they think is growing. Durant denies, but it could kind of bring things full circle. I think I would really love to finally see Durant and LeBron finish out their careers on the same team, especially if they got to go up against Steph Curry in the Western Conference Finals and like just that battle. And if he beat him, whatever, that's a whole other conversation. But I do think that Durant, so the NBA has kind of switched from this big three model, right? Even before the Nuggets won the championship, you saw teams kind of rather go for a main star, a really strong supporting star, and then a strong supporting cast rather than the 3 stars and scraps and pieces around them. I think for the most part, that's very wise. But in some cases, such as the Lakers, I think that the fit with Kevin Durant could probably be as seamless as you could imagine or hope for, because you have Durant and you have Anthony Davis and you have LeBron James. Each one of them can do a little bit of everything, right? But they're all stronger at one thing, especially at this point in their careers, than maybe another area. And I think they complement each other real well. So on the floor, LeBron's still the do-it-all Swiss Army knife guy, right? But you probably want to save some of that wear and tear on his body from having to score and carry the load. Let him be the playmaker, the facilitator, the distributor. That was the idea behind this new starting lineup that has not really worked. What about that for the Heavy on Lakers? But you add Durant, who is an offensive savant, right? And is an underrated defender, rim protector, help defender, playing all those things, right? Then you have Anthony Davis, who's strong offensively, but his best strength is defense. Just put that together on a team. And then for the Lakers, because I feel like there has to be scant few destinations for a Kevin Durant trade at this point. Like, he's done it so many times. There's so much risk that comes with it that I think you have to have the perfect organization to do it. And the Lakers might have that. They have enough ammunition to load up player assets, contracts, right, into the deal and not too severely diminish their depth, because that's part of the problem in Phoenix. They don't have the guys to support them when they're not all healthy, and they're not all going to be healthy for a lot of the time. The Lakers kind of have that, A. B, they've been navigating a similar situation as it is, and I don't want to say doing better, but they know how to handle it. How about that? And then when you add a guy like a Durant and to a LeBron and Anthony Davis, I just feel like their ceiling is so much higher. They would be the prohibitive favorites to win the NBA title in a season where it looks like it's going to be a Boston Celtics team, right? You got Minnesota Timberwolves up there at the top, near the top or at the top of the Western Conference standings. Milwaukee's always lurking. Miami's always a threat, even though they've been beat up. Like, the Lakers feel like they need something. They did get to the Western Conference Finals last year with this group. But as I said with the Bulls going into last season, when you stand pat, and the Lakers didn't stand pat nearly as much as the Bulls did, so I'll put that out there too. But when you stand pat mostly, right, when you try to do that continuity thing, it's very dangerous, especially when the rest of your conference is mired in an arms race or is improving as it is. That's tough. That's the fine line that the teams often struggle really to kind of walk correctly, because it's very easy to fall, I don't say become enamored or fall in love with, but to be stuck on the guys that you went out and picked as a general manager or whatever front office executive. The NBA is kind of weird with how they title things. We've seen it in Chicago plenty of times. And so with that, I just don't know that holding on when you fell short and you know you had, I don't want to say some luck, but you got some fortunate breaks to go your way. Now, 7-game series is probably not, that's not luck, anything other than you're doing what you had to do to get it done. But I don't know how much faith they would have that they could do it again. I just don't, because they haven't shown that kind of consistency. And while we could say it's early in the season and they gotta, still so much time to work on that in the second and third, again, this is largely the same team. So what fell off? What changed that you're now taking that step back? That's the problem. That is harder to answer than it is to ask, because it's quite obvious that there's something missing. It's just what? What is that? So Lakers have been mired in a lot of trade rumors lately. Honestly, you have the Zach LaVine stuff. We're hearing from Mark Stein of Steinline that's probably unlikely to happen. We have heard though that Dejounte Murray of the Atlanta Hawks is a potential target. Now, these are all clutch clients because remember earlier last offseason you had Trae Young linked to the Lakers after he popped up at a playoff game, right? Zach LaVine's knee, he's out with a foot soreness. The Bulls have been playing better without him, and he's still owed like $138 million over the next 3 years, not even including this season. That's been a cause for pause for a lot of teams. The Bulls are still asking for a lot for him. Another cause for pause. And then you got Dejounte Murray, who's kind of just going about his business in Atlanta despite things not necessarily working as they expected or hoped. He signed a 4-year, $120 million contract extension this past offseason, but maybe that was just, setting the stage for him to be traded on when he can. Finally, I believe it's January 9th is the day that his restrictions expire. There's a lot of noise around, maybe not to the Lakers, but Dejounte Murray being moved as they try to kind of build around Trae Young. We heard that the Knicks were interested. Ian Begley confirmed that report from, I believe, Shams Charania. And now I'm probably mixing up where all this intel is coming from because it's been all over the place. But the Lakers and the Knicks are two teams that have been, eyeing him. Now, there's a bit of a roadblock with the Knicks. They have the Leon Rose, William Wesley connection, the CAA guys running the show there. With Clutch, that's probably going to be a no-go. Michael Scott of Hoops Hype? I don't think that's who said it. I want to say Ian Begley, again, Sportsnet New York, reported that a sit-down between Rich Paul and William Wesley and Leon Rose could probably smooth things over, but maybe that doesn't happen. So maybe the Lakers go and get a Durant trade, right? Maybe the Bulls try to go and get Dejounte Murray and send Zach LaVine out to Atlanta. I wrote about that for Heavy on Bulls, as they kind of both could lean into what they do really well anyway. The Hawks want to get up a ton of threes, and they're pacing and they're running. They want the ball to pop, and to do that, you need some shooters so that teams have to respect that ability. For the Bulls, you get to add another strong defender to a team that's already shown to have some strong defenders. But some guys that can be injury prone, some guys that may not be as consistent. Murray is a guy that's going to be there, for the most part, night in and night out. He's going to give you his full effort, and he's going to be a good presence in the locker room. And so if there's trade, targets, and then there's guys who are good fits, I think Murray should be both if you're the Bulls. If you're really considering moving Zach LaVine. That being said, Zach LaVine does fit with what they're doing now if he plays the right way. Will that happen? Who knows? But I have a hard time believing that he can sit back this entire time, witness what they're doing without him, and not feel like, okay, I got to figure out a way to either mesh my way, into this, ingrain myself into what they're doing now, or maybe he just ups his ante and says that, no, I really just want to trade now because clearly y'all have moved on from me. Kobe's breaking out without him. Pat's playing good without him. DeMar has assimilated into a facilitator first, scorer second, right? The Bulls got 24 and 25 out of Andre Drummond without Nikola Vucevic. I've long said I don't know if it's any one player on the Bulls, the big three, that was holding them back as much as it was having all three of them holding them back. Looks like that might be the case. If Zach has to be the fall guy, though, you gotta lean. I think just lean into what you're doing well already. If you try to change your identity too much, that's when you start trying to change things around that, and that's when you get farther and farther away from your end goal, and you have to kind of reassess what your values are. So, if they're wise, they probably are going to just leave that alone. I would leave that alone. We didn't do it last week, and I almost forgot about it this week. Before we get out of here, though, I do want to give my Week 17 NFL picks because that's what I does. Like I said, I missed it last week. It's fun. I don't keep tabs on it. If you keep tabs on it, you want to let me know how crappy I've been doing, that's fine. I don't care. But it's a lot a lot to get into because we just have every game. The last lack of bye weeks has made things interesting, and there's still some playoff implications going around. The storylines are I guess as fire as ever, man, because it's like I said, there's so much parity that I don't know that anybody has a big enough advantage to let a 1 week slip by without feeling like it's a monumental shift in the power structure. So going through the week, we have the Jets and the Browns on Thursday Night Football. Give me the Browns. The Jets have played a little bit better. Zach Wilson, I believe, played a little bit better, and I have not been following them as closely as I probably should to be answering this question or to be setting this, but I will say the Browns. I saw what the Browns could do. And they are a team that's just resilient, and that defense is legitimate, and the Jets' offensive line is not. So, and that's even with their guys up and running. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm going to take the Browns at home in that game. Lions at the Cowboys. These are two high-powered offenses against two defenses that can be punched in the mouth. I trust the Cowboys more, but I probably do that more because they're at home than I do because of them. Game is probably a toss-up. I do like a high point total. I can see both teams getting to the high 20s and even 30s in this game, but give me the Cowboys at home, mostly because they are, like I said, at home. Titans at the Texans. C.J. Stroud, if he's returning, give me the Texans. If not, give me the Titans, because I think the Titans are scrappy enough to figure out a way. I believe Will Levis is back there and under center, and he should be good to go. I think he said he was still sore. Oh man, I gotta check that report because I saw it and I let it go behind without setting that like bookmark that I was talking about earlier. But give me again Texans at home, so I'm starting off in a very, very, very chalky way. Home with the Browns, Cowboys, and Texans. Bears and Falcons. Guess what I'm going to pick there? And that's not because I think the Bears are so dominant. I just don't think the Falcons are necessarily doing much to scare you right now. They're kind of getting in their own way. So we'll see how that plays out. Ravens at the Dolphins. Give me the Ravens. I probably would have had more doubt coming into this game had the Ravens not smacked around the 49ers the way that they did. And I know they're a more physical team now. It depends on what happens with Kyle Hamilton because that's a big blow to that defense. But if he's healthy, I'm very confident that the Ravens will be able to take out the Dolphins, who have not been a powerhouse as much as they've been a bully. We'll leave it at that. Saints at Buccaneers. Give me the Saints. Give me the Buccaneers. Man, that's a lot of home teams. I'm a straight homer right now, and I don't see it changing. Oh, man. Okay, 49ers will be the first one. So anyway, 49ers, Giants. Yeah, okay, we got a couple. I had to make sure that I wasn't going to be all home teams. That would have been a very short and boring segment. So, Saints at Buccaneers. I'll stick with the home team and get the Bucks. Baker Mayfield is working for that contract extension. The Saints guys could be on the way out, the way it seems. And so you have the rest of the. As I hit a wrong button, you also have the skill positions are a little bit better for the Saints than they are for the Buccaneers. I'm sorry, for the Buccaneers than they are for the Saints right now. And so I'll take the Buccaneers at home in that game. Patriots and the Bills. Bills are going to maybe not thrash Patriots because the Patriots find a way to stick around in games like this. But I'm going to take the Bills. That's another home game. Eagles at home against the Cardinals. They're going to beat up on their former defensive coordinator and Jonathan Gannon. The Eagles will. Jaguars at Panthers. Again, one top pick is going to be another top pick at home, though. Will be the Jaguars over the Panthers. Raiders at the Colts. Give me the Raiders in my first road pick because I do like the Colts and what they've done without Anthony Richardson there under center with Gardner Minshew there. Doing what he does, just being kind of a gamer. But the Raiders are riding some kind of a weird momentum that I just can't bet against right now. I'm really hoping that they let Antonio Pierce stick around as the head coach next season. Rams at the Giants. Rams, like I told you, they could be the team that you might not want to play when the playoffs start because they have the experience, they have the skill, and they have a defense that may not be as toothy as it once was, but it still has that man back there that could disrupt the whole game plan. So give me the Rams on the road. San Francisco 49ers at the Washington Commanders. Come on, man. I just told you Washington. Washington is in disarray. They've been in turmoil for most of the year. Give me the 49ers in that one. Steelers at the Seahawks. Now, in the beginning of the season, I probably would have picked the Steelers. Now, give me the Seahawks at home over Pittsburgh, who came off a big win last week, probably goes right back into the loser column this week. Bengals at the Chiefs. I will say this. These Chiefs are lucky that they're facing these Bengals because if there was both teams' opening day rosters, right, or planned opening day rosters, I would definitely be picking the Bengals in a blowout because I have no faith in what the Chiefs can do consistently. And then I don't know, maybe they turn it up when they face pressure, but that's not typically what we see in teams, especially not as because it's a lot. It's a lot to ask of your defense to stay on the field and hold those guys back, and then for your offense to kind of make up the ground, whatever that you do lose. So, Chargers at the Broncos, two backup, Easton Stick versus Jarrett Stidham. This game is going to be Easton Stick versus Jarrett Stidham. You pick it. I'm not picking that. You pick that. Green Bay Packers at the Minnesota Vikings. Oh, man. Give me the Packers. As much as it pains me to say they are having some turmoil, they had to suspend cornerback Jair Alexander for claiming captaincy or whatever, hustling, jacking some captaincy and going out there and for the coin flip against Carolina last week. By the way, if you're a Bears fan, thank a Packer this week for beating the Panthers last week for it. And then you can go right to hating them. But you got to thank them for that one because they did their job. And Bears fans should appreciate that. Now, I think that the Vikings are a resilient group. They are a tough bunch, but there's just so many injuries that eventually it has to hold you back. And I think that, these final few weeks here are going to show that their limitations are just too much to overcome, especially as they lost another key piece to that defense that's really been the steadying force for their entire season. that's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Be sure to follow me on X at Josh E. Buck, on Facebook at Clocker Sports, and the website clockersports.com. And of course, you can follow the show on Facebook and on X at 30pod. That's the number 30pod. Be sure to visit the website clockersports.com. You can read all the stuff at Last Word on Sports, heavy on Bulls, heavy on Lakers, heavy on Vikings, soaring down south. And you can also read everything, like I said, at Clocker Sports. And until the very next time, you already know what it is, man. I'm gone.